Welcome, friends. Welcome, Lilani, Norma Sky, Guy. All right. So we'll give a minute for people to come in. We'll get started. Hello, Manal. Hello, Louisa. Welcome. We are reading Majjhima Nikaya number 139 tonight. So the link is in the description if you want to follow along. Hello, Bhumika. Welcome. Hello, Mary. Welcome. All right. We'll get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Oh, Maria. So once again, we'll start on Majjhima Nikaya 139. Link is in the description if you'd like to follow along. The analysis of non-conflict. So I have heard that one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Buddha said this, Mendicants, I shall teach you the analysis of non-conflict. Listen and apply your mind well. I will speak. Yes, sir, they replied. The Buddha said this, don't indulge in sensual pleasures, which are low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. And don't indulge in self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, and pointless. Avoiding these two extremes, the realized one woke up by understanding the middle way of practice, which gives vision and knowledge, which leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. So right off the bat, the way to practice non-conflict is practicing the middle way. If you are engaging in a hedonistic lifestyle, well, then it's very easy to get into conflict with others. Your people get in the way of your desires. Right? People get in the way of your wants. And you decide to do what you need to get them out of the way. Same thing the other way around. You're mortifying yourself. You're putting yourself through ascetic practices, and you're grumpy and agitated. and you're more likely to cause trouble and have things with other monastics and other people around you, agitations. Right? So when you are following the middle way, then your mind, you're more likely, what does it say? Right? Avoiding these two extremes, practice the middle way, which gives rise to vision and knowledge. So right off the bat, this is the Buddha's first advice in practicing non-conflict, setting the groundwork for your mind to minimize the chances of causing some kind of conflict with yourself and with others. Know what it means to flatter and to rebuke. Knowing these, avoid them and just teach Dhamma. Know how to evaluate different kinds of pleasure. Knowing this, pursue inner bliss. Don't talk behind people's backs, and don't speak sharply in their presence. Don't speak hurriedly. Don't insist on local terminology, and don't override common usage. This is the recitation passage for the analysis of non-conflict. So this is the summary. Now the Buddha is going to go into the details. Don't indulge in sensual pleasures, which are low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. And don't indulge in self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, and pointless. This is what I said. But why did I say it? Pleasure linked to sensuality is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. Indulging in such happiness in quotes, is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the wrong way. Breaking off such indulgence is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the right way. Indulging in self-mortification is painful, ignoble, and pointless. It is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the wrong way. Breaking off such indulgence is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the right way. Don't indulge in sensual pleasures, which are low, crude, ordinary, and ignoble, and pointless. And don't indulge in self-mortification, which is painful and ignoble and pointless. That is what I said, and that's why I said it. Avoiding these two extremes, the realized one woke up by understanding the middle way of practice, which gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. That's what I said, but why did I say it? It is simply this noble eightfold path. That is, right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion. Avoiding these two extremes, the realized one woke up by understanding the middle way of practice, which gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. That is what I said, and this is why I said it. So again, this section is, as explained, is basically about setting the groundwork for non-conflict. I don't think it's in the sutta. I could be wrong. But one of my favorite lines the Buddha ever says in all the suttas is, bhikkhus, I do not argue with the world argues with me. A practitioner of the Dhamma argues with nobody in the world. Right? So the Buddha sets this idea of trying to engage with people and engage in the world in a way that minimizes unskillful conflict. As a matter of fact, the sutta that I chose for Friday morning is along similar lines in terms of engaging with other people and how we deal with tough situations and conflicts and things like this in a skillful way. Hello, Julie. Welcome. All right, moving on to the next section. Know what it means to flatter and to rebuke. Knowing these, avoid them and just teach Dhamma. That's what I said, but why did I say it? And how is there flattering and rebuking without teaching Dhamma? In speaking like this, some are rebuked. Pleasure linked to sensuality is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. All those who indulge in such happiness are beset by pain, harm, stress, fever. They are practicing the wrong way. So the Buddha is saying, some people rebuke what I just said. In speaking like this, some people are flattered. Pleasure linked to sensuality is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. All those who have broken off such indulgence are free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and they are practicing the right way. In speaking like this, some are rebuked. Indulging in self-mortification is painful, ignoble, and pointless. All those who indulge in it are beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. They are practicing the wrong way. In speaking like this, some are flattered. Indulging in self-mortification is painful, ignoble, and pointless. All those who have broken off such indulgences are free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. They are practicing the right way. There's a difference there, and it's a subtle difference. And the Buddha is going to actually come up with this in a bit. When we read through the same lines before, there was no, this person is practicing the wrong way. There's simply, it is the right way, it is the wrong way. But now we're in the section of flattering and rebuking. The line is, this person is practicing the right way, or this person is practicing the wrong way. Subtle difference, but important one. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. And speaking like this, some are rebuked. All those who have not given up the fetters of rebirth are beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. and they are practicing the wrong way. In speaking like this, some are flattered. All those who have given up the fetters of rebirth are free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and they are practicing the right way. That's how there is flattering and rebuking without teaching the Dhamma. And how is there neither flattering nor rebuking and just teaching the Dhamma? You don't say, pleasure linked to sensuality is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. All those who indulge in such happiness are beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and they are practicing the wrong way. Rather, by saying this, you just teach the Dhamma. Indulgence is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the wrong way. So here the Buddha is making that distinction that I pointed out. Right? There is explaining this is the wrong way, and there is saying that person is practicing the wrong way. Those of you who've ever had to have some level of public relations or management or dealing with people in general, you can understand that making something personal can sometimes bring up lots of defenses in people, lots of agitation. You're doing this wrong. As opposed to, this is not maybe we can think of a better way. Let's discuss. Let's think about it. And so this is a very skillful means of trying to share the Dhamma without putting somebody on a defensive or feeling like they're being attacked, without personalizing it. You don't say, pleasure linked to sensuality is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. All those who have broken off such indulgences are free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. They are practicing the right way. Hello, Sud. Welcome. Rather, by saying this, you just teach the Dhamma. Breaking off the indulgence is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. You don't say, indulging in self-mortification is painful, ignoble, and pointless. All those who indulge in it are beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. They are practicing the wrong way. Rather, by saying this, you just teach the Dhamma. The indulgence is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the wrong way. You don't say indulging in self-mortification is painful, ignoble, and pointless. All those who have broken off such indulgence are free of pain, harm, and stress and fever, and they are practicing the right way. And not only that, something that comes to mind in these lines, there's the second part of this is also a blanket statement. All those who have broken off such indulgences are free of pain. No. Somebody could not be doing such a thing and have plenty of pain. So this is also kind of an avoidance of making blanket statements too. Rather, by saying this, you just teach the Dhamma. Breaking off indulgence is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. You don't say, all those who have not given up the fetters of rebirth are beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. They are practicing the wrong way. Rather, by saying this, you teach the Dhamma. When the fetter of rebirth is not given up, rebirth is also not given up. You don't say, all those who have given up the fetters of rebirth are free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and they are practicing the right way. Rather, by saying this, you just teach Dhamma. When the fetter of rebirth is given up, rebirth is also given up. That's how there is neither flattering nor rebuking, and just teaching Dhamma. Know what it means to flatter and to rebuke. Knowing these, avoid them, and just teach Dhamma. That is what I said, and that is why I said it. Know how to evaluate different kinds of pleasure. Knowing this, pursue inner bliss. That's what I said, and why did I say it? There are these 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. What 5? Sights known by the eye that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. Sounds known by the ear. Smells known by the nose. Taste known by the tongue. Touches known by the body that are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. These are the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation. The pleasure and happiness that arise from these 5 kinds of sensual stimulation is called sensual pleasure, a filthy, common, and ignoble pleasure. Such pleasure should not be cultivated or developed, but should be feared, I say. Now take a mendicant who, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, enters and remains in the first jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. So remember, this section is about being able to distinguish between pleasures. What is skillful pleasure and unskillful pleasure? What is pleasure worthy of indulging in? What is pleasure not worthy of indulging in? So we've gone over people joining. Hello, Amaranta, Visaka, Yankee, welcome. So it's understanding the differences. This is the point that's being made here. Enters or remains in the first jhana, which has the rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. As the placing of mind and keeping it connected are stilled, they enter and remain in the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana. This is called the pleasure of renunciation, the pleasure of letting go, the pleasure of seclusion, a mind that is secluded, right? A mind that is not grasping at sensual pleasures. The pleasure of peace, the pleasure of awakening. Such a pleasure should be cultivated and developed and should not be feared, I say. So the Buddha is really making a point here between 2 types of pleasure. Chasing after sensual pleasures is a principle beset by suffering. But the pleasure of jhana is not to be feared. In sutta, a very famous sutta, simile of the arrow, where the Buddha explains the 2 kinds of arrows that hit somebody, right? The first arrow is the arrow of physical pain. The second arrow is the arrow of mental pain. In this sutta, the Buddha explains our underlying habitual tendencies when we experience pleasurable experience, when we experience painful experience. The habitual tendency when we experience pleasurable experience is to grasp, is to cling. That's not the pleasure of renunciation. That's not the pleasure of letting go, right? When we experience painful experience, the Buddha says that our underlying tendency is to try to drown it out with pleasurable experience. And the Buddha says, why is that? Because the unawakened person does not know an escape from unpleasant experience other than pleasant experience. And it's not specifically said in that sutta, but it's pointed to here in other suttas. The escape the Buddha is talking there is jhanas, right? The pleasure that is not to be feared, that is skillful, as opposed to the vulgar hedonistic chasing after sensual pleasures. This is the being able to distinguish. This is a very important part of the path, right? To be able to distinguish, to discriminate between this is skillful, this is unskillful. And then with right effort, we abandon unskillful, we develop skillful. All right. Know how to evaluate different kinds of pleasure. Knowing this, pursue inner bliss. That is what I said, and this is why I said it. Don't talk behind people's backs, and don't speak sharply in their presence. That's what I said, but why did I say it? When you know that what you say behind someone's back is untrue, false, and pointless, then, if at all possible, you should not speak. There's no benefit to doing this at all. There's only harm that can come from that. So you should not speak. When you know that what you say behind someone's back is true and correct, but pointless, then you should train yourself not to speak. When you know that what you say behind someone's back is true, correct, and beneficial, then you should know the right time to speak. Right, so this is an interesting situation here. We're talking about, and this is a very common thing you see in multiple places in the suttas when the Buddha is talking about right speech. Right, and there's these qualities that you're judging the intended speech by. Is it true? Is it factual? Is it beneficial? Is it pleasant? Is it timely? And so this is these various different iterations that the Buddha is going through. And so even though you're speaking behind somebody's back, maybe you're telling somebody, oh, this would really benefit them. Let's do this. Let's do that. So you're not doing it to kind of divide people. You're not doing it for malicious reasons. You're doing it for the person's benefit. Then know the right time. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome. When you know that your sharp words in someone's presence are untrue, false, and pointless, then if all possible, you should not speak. When you know that your sharp words in someone's presence are true and correct but pointless, then you should train yourself not to speak. When you know that your sharp words in someone's presence are true and correct and beneficial, then you should know the right time to speak. So it doesn't say, remember, this is not saying that sharp words should never be said. Right? Sometimes some people are doing some bad stuff. And what you're going to say is true and correct and beneficial, something they need to hear. Then you know the right time. And sometimes you have to be sharp. It's just like with children. Right? You're raising children. Maybe you don't want to yell at them a lot and all these things. And that's good. But then when they do something really bad, if you have some sharp words, that really makes them realize, oh, this is serious. If you're just yelling and being angry at them all the time, they're like, okay, another one of these. But if you use your words skillfully, even if it's sharp, right? Sharp or rough, abusive, these are different words that this is parusaya is the Pali word being for in the right speech. If you use these words skillfully, then they may be of good benefit. Takes wisdom. You have to be careful when you use something like this. Okay, so don't talk behind people's backs and don't speak sharply in their presence. That's what I said, and this is why I said it. Don't speak hurriedly. That is what I said, but why did I say it? When you speak hurriedly, your body gets tired and your mind gets stressed. Your voice gets stressed, your throat gets sore, and your words become unclear and hard to understand. When not speaking hurriedly, your body doesn't get tired, your mind doesn't get stressed, your voice doesn't get stressed, your throat doesn't get sore, and your words are clear and easy to understand. Don't speak hurriedly. That's what I said, and this is why I said it. Don't insist on local terminology and don't override common usage. That's what I said, but why did I say it? And how do you insist on local terminology and override common usage? It's when in different localities the same thing is known as a plate, a bowl, a cup, a dish, a basin, a tureen, or a porringer. And however it's known in those various localities, you speak accordingly, obstinately sticking to that and insisting, this is the only truth, other ideas are silly. That is how you insist on local terminology and override common knowledge. And how do you not insist on local terminology and override common usage? It's when, in different localities, the same thing is known as a plate, a bowl, a cup, a dish, a basin, a tureen, or a porringer. And however it's known in those various localities, you speak accordingly, thinking, it seems the venerables are referring to this. That's how you don't insist on local terminology and don't override common usage. Don't insist on local terminology and don't override common usage. That's what I said, and this is why I said it. So this is a very important line, especially when sharing the Dhamma, because what this is pointing to is using the language and the terminology that people can understand. If I started the live stream and I did the whole live stream in Pali, it would be useless to basically everybody because you all don't know Pali. Honestly, it would be useless to me. I don't know Pali like I know English. If somebody was just speaking Pali for an hour, I'd probably get about 60% of it, maybe. But this is the idea, right? If a Sri Lankan monk or a Thai monk comes and on the stream and they speak in Thai or Sinhala, maybe there'll be a small percentage of people that would understand, but the rest of us would have no idea what they're saying because they're not speaking in our language. That's why it's important to be able to share the Dhamma in the language of the people. This is why you have things like Bhante Jayasara's translation, which I'm reading, where he has chosen to not necessarily be exactly technically correct, which you'll find Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, but try to use translations in a way that's a bit easier to understand for the average person. And both those translation, both Bhikkhu Bodhi and Bhante Jayasara's translation intentions have pros and cons. But this is the idea. The idea is if you're trying to put forth information using doing it in ways that people understand, using the same terminology, Right? This is what this is pointing to and why it's very important. All right. Now, mendicants, pleasure linked to sensuality is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. Indulging in such happiness is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and this is the wrong way. That's why this is a principle beset by conflict. Breaking off such indulgence is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. Indulging in self-mortification is painful, ignoble, and pointless. It's a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the wrong way. That's why this is a principle beset by conflict. Breaking off such indulgence is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. The middle way of practice, by which the realized one was awakened, gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. It is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. Flattering and rebuking without teaching Dhamma is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and is the wrong way. That's why this is a principle beset by conflict. Neither flattering nor rebuking, and just teaching Dhamma is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. Sensual pleasure, a filthy, common, and ignoble pleasure, is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the wrong way. That's why this is a principle beset by conflict. The pleasure of letting go, the pleasure of seclusion, the pleasure of peace, the pleasure of awakening is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. Saying untrue, false, and pointless things behind someone's back is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the wrong way. That is why it is a principle beset by conflict. So another thing to point out here is when we're talking about skillful and unskillful, right and wrong, in Buddhism, in the suttas, almost always the idea here is that we're talking about what is beneficial to ourselves and others and what is harmful to ourselves and others. If you're thinking from that framework, then it's easy to understand, oh, this is a principle beset by pain, this is a principle of conflict, etc. Right? This is how the Buddha wants us to understand the different pleasures, understand the different actions and intentions. Is this for my benefit and the benefit of others, or for my harm and the harm of others? If you keep to that framework, then you can understand the differences. You can see, oh, this is going to be for my harm and the harm of others. Remember, it's not either or, it's both. So you're shooting for an action that is going to be beneficial for both. Not harmful for myself and beneficial for others, not harmful for others and beneficial for myself, beneficial for both. Saying true and correct but pointless things behind someone's back is a principle beset by pain, harm, and stress and fever. It is the wrong way. That's why this is a principle beset by conflict. Saying true, correct, and beneficial things behind someone's back is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. That's why it is a principle free of conflict. Saying untrue, false, and pointless things in someone's presence is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the wrong way. That's why this is a principle beset by conflict. Saying true and correct but pointless things in someone's presence is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the wrong way. This is why this is a principle beset by conflict. Saying true and correct and beneficial things in someone's presence is a principle free of pain, harm, and stress and fever. It is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. Speaking hurriedly is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever, and it is the wrong way. That's why it's a principle beset by conflict. Speaking unhurriedly is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever, and is the right way. This is why it's a principle free of conflict. Insisting on local terminology and overriding common usage is a principle beset by pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the wrong way. That's why it's a principle beset by conflict. Not insisting on local terminology and not overriding common usage is a principle free of pain, harm, stress, and fever. It is the right way. That's why this is a principle free of conflict. So you should train like this. We shall know the principles beset by conflict and the principles free of conflict. Knowing this, we shall practice the way free of conflict. Sadhu. Very good. We're not done yet, but I have to say sadhu to that. So that's so many, if we all would practice in such a way. Knowing this, we will practice the way free of conflict. And mendicants, Subhuti, the gentleman, practices the way of non-conflict. This is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what the Buddha said. All right. This is one of those wonderful suttas that is so practicable. You can put it into practice right away. I see we have some questions already. So we have some time. If you would like to ask a question, you can put it in the chat. All right. Hello, Peace. Hello, Rick. All right. I spoke a little hurriedly through the sutta, so my mouth is parched. I'm going to get some water while questions might be coming in. All right. Then I'll ask a question. How would one help themselves if there is an intent to practice right speech, but there's still a habit of speaking hurriedly? You want to train yourself, and train is the word there. That's the meaning that it's going to take a while for you to actually get to the point. But you want to train yourself that when you are engaged in a conversation, you are, as I like to say, thinking twice and speaking once, meaning that you are allowing yourself to have the time. I know there's this kind of feeling, like impression, like, oh, an impulse, like I have to answer right away or something like that. Because people are, they don't like pauses. They don't like kind of dead air, right? And they feel like they have to fill that dead air with something. This is why when people learn to public speak, they're like, they go, and all these kind of things. Be comfortable with dead air, with silence. Give it a few seconds. Reflect on, you have the intention, have the aspiration. I want to engage in this conversation as skillfully as possible. And with that intention, you will want to have that extra time, just an extra second or two, to really think about what you're going to say. This is a mindfulness practice. This is a satipatthana practice. Right? 4 foundations of mindfulness. If you develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness, if you develop the attitude and the aspiration to practice mindfulness in all of your activities, well, then engaging in conversation with people is one of the best training arenas for developing your mindfulness. Because you can really pay attention to the desires and the pushes and all that stuff that you're going to experience while you're engaging with somebody. And especially when it comes to all of a sudden you're talking about politics or this or that or people you dislike or whatever, and then it gets, agitation arises and escalation might arise. So you learn through practicing mindfulness over and over and over again through these situations how to de-escalate, how to speak in ways that unify, how to speak in ways that can get a valid point across, but will not bring up defensiveness, will not bring up disputation, and conflict in all of these ways. But this is some tips that I would say. But developing a mindfulness practice is the way to handle a situation like this, because then your mind is going to be clear and aware when you're engaging in conversation. Sud has a question. If someone reaches the first level of enlightenment, they still have sensual desires, but then seems like if they practice in accordance with sensual desires, they would be practicing the wrong way. Then does this mean even stream mentors can practice the wrong way? Possibly in a minor way, but mostly not. So it is a common, people who don't really read the suttas and understand the suttas or focus on the suttas can really kind of make a stream mentor out to be like almost like an arahant. But if you read how the Buddha describes the different levels of awakening, a sotapanna can still do wrong things, can still do bad things. They just can't do the worst things. They can't do the heavy kamas. They're not going to kill an arahant, harm a Buddha, right? Especially because they have no doubt left that the Buddha's teachings and the Dhamma is the way to go. So they're not even going to do anything crazy like that. They're not going to kill their parents, right? These are heavy kamas. So they can still do bad things, but it says that they will not hide it, meaning like they're going to realize it's not, they're not going to have all kinds of justifications in their mind. Well, this is the right. No, they're going to say, I did a bad thing. And then they're going to acknowledge it. Right. So they are not, they even still have greed and hatred. The next level up, once returner, they attenuate it, meaning they kind of weaken it. But even they still have greed and hatred. It's not until non-returner that greed and hatred is gone. But then at that point, only 5 of the 10 fetters are gone. Half of the fetters only get destroyed when you become awakened. Right? So I would not say that a stream enter would practice the wrong way per se. They could do some wrong things, but they're locked in. They only have maximum 7 lifetimes before becoming awakened. So it's not like they're gonna, decide, or it's like, well, I don't think this is the practice for me. I'm gonna go follow another religion or go do something else or something like that. They're locked in. They're not awakened. They're not like super advanced beings like some people think. But this is they're not going to have extreme wrong view or anything like that. And don't forget, you can become a stream enter even if you're just a faith follower. If you have really strong faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, you can become a stream enter. You would maybe not even had to have meditated at all. Right? So stream entry is available for lay people, for monastics, and it should be something that everybody has an aspiration to attain. My preceptor Bhante Gunaratana said, you should all want to be stream enters, money back guarantee. Right? So stream entry at minimum is what everybody, even lay people, should be striving towards. If I am able to attain stream entry in this life, I'll be quite happy. Because at least that means if I can't make awakening in this life, at least I have a limited amount of lives left. So, all right. Maranta, I don't know. I'm not sure Buddha does this, but I'll read the question. Bhante, I don't understand why Buddha relates the sensual pleasures with right speech in the sutta. I don't understand the logic. Let me look at the sutta real quick. I don't know off the top of my head a section that does that, but sensual pleasures of the right speech. Yeah, Martha, if you could point me to a specific section, I don't see anything specific that would answer your question, or just ask a clarifying question for me. I'll do my best to help you out there. Bhumika says, Bhante, why in family no one feels happy even if you try to do good for them, and what is the reason for this? They live a life beset for suffering and pain, just as it says in the sutta. This is the nature of reality. You have to think about it in terms of the samsaric understanding. You and everybody you know is full of ignorance and delusion. You have no idea what you're doing. The only people who have any idea know what they're doing in this life and on this earth are arahants. And that's very few of all the billions of people. Most of us have no idea what we're doing. But we know we want to have pleasure and happiness, and we want to avoid pain and sadness. That's our kind of basic operating system. And so what we're doing in this life is just kind of roaming around blind and deluded, trying to figure out how to maximize our happiness and pleasure, minimize our pain and sadness. And in doing so, we bounce off each other, cause each other harm, create lots of suffering for ourselves. This is nature of the world. All you have to do is put on the news for an hour. You can see that. The world has been going this way, and it will continue to go this way. You look at the world, full of suffering, full of wars, full of hatred. But also, there's still good too. There's friendliness and generosity. Right? There's good parts that people, good things that people do as well. It's not all bad. But even still, we have, as the Buddha says, we have the three unwholesome roots. We have greed, hatred, and delusion. And so no matter where you go, you're surrounded by a bunch of ignorant people filled with greed, hatred, and delusion. That's the reason. That's the answer to your question. Why in the family no one feels happy, even though you try to do good for them. That's the grand scheme. Any question that's related to why are people like this, that's the answer. Greed, hatred, and delusion. And then if you have an answer, if you have a question about location, why are people in governments this way? Why are people in corporations this way? Why are people in countries this way? Why are people in religions this way? Whatever you want, whatever group. The answer? Greed, hatred, and delusion. Why are people in the monastery this way? Greed, hatred, and delusion. That's the answer. That is the nature of this samsaric existence. Hello, Meredith. Welcome. Marantha says, is it only free of greed when we can really have right speech? I suppose we need to check the intentions behind our speech. That's why we need to talk without a hurt. Yes, the intentions behind the speech is very important. One of the things that you see when you start to observe your intentions behind your actions is that there's levels of intention, and also there's different intentions. Like you might have the intention to say something to somebody, and part of you has the intention out of just the goodness of your heart, and part of you thinks, oh, this will also be a benefit to me too. Like some reason, right? There's different intentions, and sometimes they all line up, and they might not all be skillful. And then you have to kind of, well, even though there's a part of me that this is an unskillful intention, should I do it anyway? Keeping that unskillful intention in check. And usually, in my experience, the answer is yes, I should do it anyway. And I should keep an eye on that unskillful intention and approve of the skillful ones. But yeah, so this is really being able to see things like the intentions behind our speech and all of that takes a good practice, good development of mindfulness, real understanding of the mind to maximize right speech and right action and all of these things. But as we go along, as we practice, we get better at that. We master that, right? We learn Right? We have to screw up and have lots of wrong speech for a long time before we can really master right speech. It takes time. Believe me, I'm a lifelong loudmouth. I've put my foot in my mouth many times. I just do it a lot less these days. Maybe only once or twice a year. All right. Well, I'll give it another minute or two, see if any questions pop up. And if there's nothing, then we can end it. Can also take questions from the people here at the monastery if anybody has any. Or we can just call it an early night. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
Question. Thinking about this sutta reminds me of another one I mentioned you're familiar with, the Saka's questions about conflict in the beginning time. And and Saka asks the Buddha, what is the cause of conflict? So a different setting, a different person, and the Buddha says, talking to Saka, he says the causes are being unwilling to share on the one hand, and also jealousy of other people's belongings. I wonder if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think that's related to the it is definitely related to the sutta, because I was thinking about how the Buddha explains that when we have something pleasant, like acquisition happens, right? We acquire, we chase, we seek, and then guarding happens. And we grab something, we want to keep it, and other people are trying to take it. So the taking up of swords and all of that stuff. Yeah. This is why the craving and unskillful things are the origin of this.
I don't know if that person's question was clarified, but I had a similar line of inquiry. If you had any thoughts on that flattery was kind of what seemed to get paralleled with indulgence and sensual desires, and that rebuking was what got paralleled with rebuking others. And it's kind of like, I felt like maybe the Buddha was saying that we're harming ourselves when we rebuke others, and that we're indulging in needless craving when we flatter others.
Interesting. The mortification is the rebuking. And and that also makes sense, right? Because the flattery feels like pleasurable, and the rebuking feels painful, right? So engaging in the pleasurable, the pleasant experiences, and then engaging in the unpleasant experiences. Yeah, that's a good spot. Very good. I didn't even catch that. All right, I think we're good then for tonight. So tomorrow, Thursday, is covered by other monks outside of the monastery. So Thursday morning and Thursday evening will be covered. So you can join tomorrow. I think it's a Sri Lankan Bhante and a Thai monastic who do these. I don't know exactly who. But if you'd like to do more streams, you can check on the YouTube tomorrow morning and evening. And then I'll be back Friday morning. And then maybe Friday night we can get the monastics to all come together for monk chat. So we'll see you then. So Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again.
You do a